Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Letters from the Rebbe. This is our second week. We are going to explore a fascinating letter from the Rebbe. I hope you enjoy this journey. And we are doing this to mark the Shloshim, the 30-day mourning period of those who were murdered in Sydney, in the Sydney massacre on the first night of Hanukkah. That is dedicated to them. And we're going to jump right into it. I'm going to share my screen so you can read along the letter with me. I have loosely translated the letter. I gave it a title. This is not from the Rebbe. The Rebbe's letter is originally in Yiddish, as you're going to see something fascinating, is that actually the Rebbe's language wisdom you're going to see in this, the fellow actually wrote it to the Rebbe in Russian. That's also sometimes indicative of the nature of the person's life. We're going to read it with basic commentary. I've written translate also more literary translation, which is a little longer. Those who like that, you can reach out to me. I will share with you that. So this letter is dated in the Hebrew 13th of Sivan, 5716, which corresponds in English to May 23rd, 1956. So 1956, this fellow reaches out to the Rebbe for guidance. And as you see, it's a very difficult letter in terms of pain. Obviously, there's pain. You can clearly tell that. There's questions. I decided to choose this letter as we all have the questions about why bad things happen to good people. Certainly, Jews celebrating Hanukkah, bringing light and peace to others, Chabad rabbis and their communities. So I chose this letter to give us a little insight on how the Rebbe would respond to such a situation. There are other letters that directly respond to this situation. This is not a direct response, but it's definitely an outlook on life. The thing is beneficial for all of us. So without further ado, the title I gave it is Trust in the Plan. And I gave a little subtitle, The World is Not Chaotic and is Guided by a System. Now that I think is very important for all of us to remember, sometimes remind ourselves, remind others. There's lots of craziness sometimes that we see in front of us. And the more we're plugged into the Torah, as the Rebbe is, and that's really what the Rebbe shares, we might not have answers to questions, but we have a world outlook that allows us to be positive and productive. So here comes the letter. Greetings and blessings. I'm just going to highlight some pieces so you know where I'm up to. Okay. I received your letter in which you describe your life's journey, the wanderings, experiences, and difficulties till recently arriving in, and here the secretariat that was trusted by the Rebbe to publish his letters. There were certain things that for privacy or other reasons were taken out. So here's doesn't say where he's from. And you remark on things that are not clear to you. Since there is no Russian typewriter in the secretariat, I will respond in Yiddish. But of course, you can write to me in the language that is most convenient for you. The Rebbe says, I welcome letters in Russian. And I've seen this actually before, where the Rebbe says to someone who was actually, I think, writing to the Rebbe in Portuguese. The Rebbe says, no one in my secretariat knows Portuguese or can dictate that, but you can keep on writing to me, and I will respond in language through my secretariat. You see also the role of the Rebbe's secretaries. This fellow may have known Yiddish, or he may have to ask someone to read with him the letter. I have a feeling that 1956, the fellow who wrote it in Russian to the Rebbe knew Yiddish. That's my guess. Okay. You wonder, according to your writing, why don't you see any abnormalities in the events that have occurred in your family and at home? If you think about it, you will realize that a person only sees a limited part of what is happening with them and around them. Therefore, cannot accurately assess the content of what they see. So this is going to be very interesting. He's complaining he's not seeing special things in his family. And the Rebbe is saying we are limited beings and we only see specific things. To illustrate this, I'll give an example. This is a very straight up example, which I think is quite interesting and humorous. If someone enters an operating room and sees a person lying on the table and people around them with various knives or tools, utensils, the person is crying out in pain. They might think that these people are murderers and robbers. If they explain to them that the operation is necessary to save the person's life and the pain is temporary, they would understand that these people are actually doing a great service. So you have to know the context. You have to know the context. You see the bigger picture. Again, you're seeing this guy laying on a table, people out there with tools, knives, cutting him open, blood going everywhere. This looks like a murder scene. If you know the context, no, this is saving a man's life. So you got to see the bigger picture. Now, will we always see the bigger picture? Or this is where we need to have a little belief. But this is not just blind faith. This is, as you'll see, somewhat of a system to have this perspective. Similarly, in life, we experience pain and difficulties, says the Rebbe. I'm the top there. But knowing that the world is not chaotic and is guided by a system, we should trust that these events are not random, but rather part of a larger plan. So I think this is a very big theme for the Rebbe. Sometimes the world can look like a jungle. The Rebbe saw it as God's garden. We are his gardeners. Yes, there are weeds that grow in the garden. We need to take care of the God's world. That is our mission. We are his gardeners. This theme is brought out in the first discourse, and I think the most important discourse of the Rebbe's leadership, Teachings of Chabad, which is coming up next week on Tuesday night, Wednesday, which is the 10th of Shvat, which commemorates the yahrzeit of the Rebbe's father-in-law. In 1950, his predecessor passed away. And the day the Rebbe, the following year, in that yahrzeit, 1951, assumed the leadership of Chabad and put down a plan how to take Judaism after the Holocaust and bring it to new heights. And everything you see of Chabad today is all rolled into that plan. So, back to our letter here, there's a bigger plan. And it's not chaotic. It's not a jungle. The way that God sees the world and the way we see the world, and when we're plugged into Torah teaching and real Judaism, we'll end up seeing that we are gardeners. So let us get now to the next paragraph. You ask questions and say that if the world has a system and goal, why do we see so much suffering? This is the question we all have. But we know from physics, chemistry, and astronomy, etc. I have a feeling that if the Rebbe was writing using these examples from physics, chemistry, astronomy, sciences, this fellow was well versed in that, just my assumption, that every smallest atom has its own rules, and everything is done according to these rules. The world is not a random place, and everything has its own purpose. You just learn a little bit about the systems. Science tells us that the world works in atoms work in, from physics to chemistry to astronomy, anything, you will see that there is a system. Imagine entering a large building with many rooms and seeing that each room is perfectly arranged, but one room seems strange to you. So you're going around, everything's immaculate. The furniture is correct, the spacing is right, the colors are nice, it's beautiful. And then you find hundreds of rooms, this huge palace, huge building. And then you find one room that's got something, out of order, strange, odd. Wouldn't you assume that even that room has its own purpose, even if you don't understand it? This is not just philosophy, but a way to strengthen your trust in God's plan, to see the good in the people around you. We should focus on our own actions and try to make our surroundings better with love and kindness towards others. This will bring good to ourselves and our families. The Rebbe is saying, I'm not trying to talk philosophy, I'm not going to give a speech. I'm talking about practical life. This trust in God's plan. We got to trust in God's plan. And that will allow us to be better to ourselves and to our people around us, our families first and foremost. I want to end by saying that my intention with this letter is not just to philosophize, but to give you the idea that if you use your objective and healthy mind, it will bring you to strengthen your trust in God. I love this. Many people see trust and faith in God and science as modern inventions as opposites, as contradictions. The Rebbe always sees, and you'll see this theme throughout the Rebbe's letters. We've discussed this last week. The Rebbe's letters are really a treasure trove of real insight into life, practical, deeply rooted in Torah, but while embracing everything the world is about. And this is something very special. You get to see this theme over and over. The Rebbe is saying, you want to know what's an example to trust in God? Learn from scientists. You see the systems, you see the atoms. Everything has its specific rules, and it's to the T. Even just the smallest diversion will totally transform everything. And yet it's perfect in its system. I think I read let me just read that paragraph. And I want to end by saying that my intention with this letter is not to just philosophize, but to give you the idea that if you use your objective and healthy mind, we are given a healthy mind, we have an objective mind, It will bring you to strengthen your trust in God. Again, science, using your mind, is not going to deviate you from God, but it will make you find our trust in God. To look at people around you with a good eye, seeing things in a nice way, in a positive way. It's a great book based on the Rebbe's teaching. It's called Positivity Bias. Many of you know me. I'm very into people reading that book. It's an easy read, but it's a powerful read, and it's a life-changing way of looking at life. Looking at people and yourself with a good eye, seeing their virtues and trying to understand their difficulties. Maybe even more important, not only seeing people's virtues, say, well, I connect with that, that resonates with me, but understand what their challenges are. I hope you will read this letter with the right intention and understanding. If you have any questions or need clarification, please write to me, and I will be happy to respond, even with a delay due to my many responsibilities. This is amazing. The Rebbe got so much mail every day. The sacks and sacks of mail would come to the Rebbe were second to the White House in the United States. Maybe sometimes even more mail a day. Thousands upon letters. The mailman would sometimes come multiple times a day with letters to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe doesn't say, well, I answered you. Hope life goes well. Take my word, start. The Rebbe is encouraging more writing. If you need help, I'm here for you. That is a sign of a Jewish leader, of a Rebbe, like the first Moses, that he cared for every single individual and didn't just care about the general public, welfare of the many, but the Rebbe really cared about each and every person, each and every Jew he came in contact with. And that's really the message I'm taking from this letter is the Rebbe's happy to be in touch with people and let them pour out their hearts, let them ask their questions. May God bless you and guide you on your journey with blessings. So I give all of my friends that are listening to this the same blessing. May God guide us, our journey. And this is some food for thought. And again, this is loosely translation of the original letter in Yiddish. It's found in the 13th volume of the Rebbe's Ikros Kodesh. Just so you know, the number letter is quite interesting. It is the 4,444th letter of the Rebbe's letters that are printed in the set Ikros Kodesh. Have a wonderful day. I hope you enjoy this. And if you like to sponsor or dedicate a further letter, we're going to try to do one letter a week. Please reach out and let us take this message to heart. And we will hopefully see better in ourselves and in others and understand their difficulties.